Live. Hello, everyone. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and I am so pleased to be on both here on our Facebook page, and we are also on Instagram at the same time. So I'm excited about that. I don't know how it's going to work out, but those of you that know me know that we try anything, at least one time, and to see how it goes. Although I do take off a disclaimer, I don't do bungee cord jumping and all that kind of stuff. So as long as I'm sitting in the seat, I'll try it. Well, anyhow, but you know, we have come a long ways here on Going Solo Network. We have really established a wonderful talk station for singles, a whole network of wonderful, beautiful shows that we try to bring to you. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. Of course, I like to do a little spin on things. We are going to also showcase the Going Solo with Cece, which is normally at 7 o'clock here on our Thursday night. But we're going to bring in our business showcase because we have an elite business leader who is, I mean, he just shines above, and he's such an inspiration. And I wanted to bring him forward because many of you are going from a transition, maybe stepping away from a relationship loss, broadening yourself, trying to figure out what it is you're going to do. And so I thought, just as myself, in your shoes, I thought, what better way to hear from an expert, someone that can kind of connect with us, really kind of show us the ropes and make us understand that, you know what, it's all really about the journey. So I'm really excited about that. I'm going to bring you here tonight with me. I'm going to bring you Joshua Lamothe, and I'm just really thrilled. He is also from Florida. Welcome, Josh.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is great having you. You know, you and I connected on LinkedIn, and I was just so blown away by you know, your information that you had on there. And then when I started researching you, the more information I found out about you, the more I loved you before I even met you. And I thought, what a great guy, what a connection you are, because you are a connector. You look towards the individual. And so then that made me start thinking, Josh, there has to be a journey along the way for you, something that you've embraced that has inspired you to become what you are, which is an inspiring business leader, you know, a consultant. And so tell us a little bit about your journey. What got you going in the path that you're in now?
Sure. I can start maybe where a lot of people's stories start. In 2008, I was working in the diamond industry, as a matter of fact. I was selling some of the rarest gemstones on earth. I was working with collectors, investors, and basically trying to get some of the rarest gems, natural colored diamonds, out into the public. And in 2008, when the market crashed, you know, it really affected just the overall morale of the industry I was in. And I really got sort of a moment in time where I said, you know what, I'm actually going to take a leap and really go into do what I really am passionate about, which at that point was helping individuals to find the most unique and distinguished gemstone that fit them and their needs, and transition that into helping business owners express themselves through their brand in a way that really captured the essence of who they were. And so in order to do that, I used my leverage my web design skills basically, and decided that I'm going to help people. And this was in 2008, so it was a little different world, a little more simple in terms of what was available on the web. But I decided to help people to bring their individual brands forward, themselves as entrepreneurs stepping into entrepreneurship, and to give them a voice, to give them an identity, to get them clear on their messaging, to get them clear on their services, and really what makes them unique. And so I pretty much built my entire, what's now a full service marketing web design agency around that whole idea. And this is my 10th year doing that. And I've been very fortunate to work with probably hundreds of very awesome people, very cool, innovative, creative people who are bold enough to have stepped out and follow their passions, follow their expertise, and are doing their own things. Consultants, therapists, restaurateurs, all kinds of different things.
I think that's great. I know that we had started a group online on Facebook here, and I also have a group that's offsite, and it's really for individuals, singles that want to be in business. But then I started thinking, you know, business is somewhat a single perspective, isn't it? Because when we're in business, we're kind of in that single mode. You know, we're thinking about our family, but when we're trying to develop a business, we're really focused on that. And so it's really a very laser-like focus. And so that does create a very singular vision, you know, because you've got to know what you want for your end result. But when I came across you, what I liked so much, it was define your value. And you talked a lot about setting boundaries.
Yes.
And I thought, you know, as we're moving forward through relationship loss, building new relationships, really embracing ourselves as being individuals, you know, setting our boundaries is really a core, you know, a core trying a loss for words, and it's hard to say when you're on a talk show, but it really is part of your core, and you have to make sure that, you know, your core self is protected. And so boundaries is essence to what we try to develop in order to protect ourselves, not necessarily that we're fearful of stepping outside of maybe our boundaries a little bit. We want to make sure we don't have these lockdown boundaries where we're not moving forward in our lives and through our path that we so desire. But we do have to have some sort of boundaries in place. So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on these boundaries.
Absolutely. So to transition, so a fundamental part of being a business owner and working by yourself is knowing those core values, because it's all about relationship, right? So as an individual entrepreneur, you must know, and as a individual in general, you must know the types of who you are at your core, so that you can have the best types of relationships and partnerships that come into your life. So as I went on my journey, I realized that was a very important part of working with my clients, was to distinguish where their boundaries lie, so that they can allow in those that are going to become the best partners of all kinds, and what they are going to not allow in. And so when I refer to boundaries, if you want to make a visual around it, it's not so much like you're putting up these walls with defenses and you're protecting yourself in that way. It's more like the way that a cell works. So the core of you is the center of that cell, and there are layers around you. And when you identify the layers, when someone new comes in, you have parameters for how you're going to interact at those different levels, you're able to allow in the people that are most harmonious, most beneficial, most joyful to you, whatever your values are, and sort of repel, if that's the case, those that aren't. And it's a very natural thing when you do this. You're not fighting anything or anyone, and you're not rejecting anything or anyone. You're simply seeing what's in alignment with your value and what isn't, and building operational protocols, I call them, for yourself, to allow that which is most beneficial in.
Yeah, I so agree with that, because I think as we're traveling on this road of developing a business, we have to really evaluate the type of relationship that we have. And so often I get tied up because I want to help people. You know, I have this goodness about me, and I know that I do want to help people, but I also have to step back a little bit and then really say to myself, okay, what are they giving back to me? Is because I may be giving to them, but it has to, if you're building a relationship, you have to be also receiving something back. And that's
Absolutely.
the way friendships work, right? I mean, it's just,
there has to be a form of agreement, you know, for this to really work. And it's best when it's communicated, obviously, when each party knows the expectations of the other, of course. That's when it's the most beneficial, and where you can actually because it's what it really comes down to is it's about reducing stress and creating ease. And that's really where I am in that realm now, which is, you know, that which causes stress or triggers stress is an indicator that a boundary is being touched upon. And if in that moment there's an opportunity to recognize that and to make a new choice, then the amount of infraction on your boundary is reduced, stress is reduced, and ease is improved.
That's so true. And we don't think about it so much when we're when we're out there developing, business, we're constantly in the mode of development, and we don't necessarily always think about the relationships that we are making and whether they really are good for us. Because so often, and I know in my career, there's been many relationships that have actually done a lot of damage to my business, and also took a personal hit. Because I really loved them, I trusted them, I thought that they were really more than those individuals, more than, I thought my core values resonates with their core values, and it did. I was shocked to find out that wasn't the case. And so I think we have to just kind of chalk that up as a bit of a learning experience, but it also creates an awareness for us, doesn't it?
Yes, and that is absolutely the most essential part, I think, is when you have awareness and clarity around it, you can make choices. When you're able to see a bit of perhaps a red flag, you might call it, a little earlier on than you might have. You might just have a little bit more understanding of how close you want to bring someone in and how much you want to keep them at a certain distance. And again, it's not to protect yourself so you cut yourself off from the world. And it's certainly not to not trust people. And of course, everything that happens to us is a learning experience. So we don't want to reject those experiences and the value that we've gave them, but we want to make sure that we're not devaluing our own self-worth and crossing a line in which we're actually being, some form of abused as a result of it. And we're not communicating how we really feel because we don't necessarily know that we have the right to do that. And so this kind of work, when you identify your boundaries, you can at least have clarity around where your rights end and begin and where someone may be infringing upon them. And they may not even be knowing it or being malicious. It's just them doing what they do, right? But it doesn't mean we always have to accept the behaviors of others just because they don't know exactly what they're doing or don't intentionally mean harm either.
That's so true, Van. You were spot on that. I really like what you said, because I feel that so often when we have something that's negative that happens to us, well, we sometimes take that internally, and we take too much ownership over that. And sometimes we just have to realize that is just the person, the way they are. And although we don't see eye to eye about handling business that way or handling certain situations that way, we just need to, stand tall and say, hey, this isn't working, and we're going to part ways here and make a division that's going to be good for you personally, and hopefully it'll be good for the other party.
Absolutely. And part of the work that I do with people is in the realm of what I'm referencing as their negotiables. So it's basically when you come into that place where it's familiar, because generally this is a pattern. The first time it happens, it's a learning experience and you grow. But if you're experiencing a pattern in relationship, a similar type of relationship, and maybe for your audience, if it's dating as an example, and you're experiencing the same type of situation over and over again, at some point, it might make sense for you to say, okay, what am I allowing here? And that's where it becomes around knowing what are the terms of my negotiation so that I can navigate that situation. And maybe it's a communication that the other person can totally understand and you can work towards it. And that's what makes a healthy relationship and perhaps grow into a marriage if that's what you're interested in. Or it's a line in the sand where the person says, knows I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to agree to that. I'm not willing to respect that. Well, then parting ways may be the most appropriate. So at least it gives you that moment where you pause and you can say, there's something here that's familiar. There's something here for me to do differently or to say differently to get a different result.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I think too, is when that happens to you, if you step back and evaluate it, and take it a little bit internal and kind of massage it, so to speak, you start realizing that some of it is a bit of a path for you, like you said, that you need to possibly change.
Yeah, I mean, relationships teach us and show us who we are, right? So, that's why I'm not an advocate of avoiding relationships. My business can't thrive, my family can't thrive if I keep myself closed off from the world. That's for sure. It's really important to continuously connect, like you said, But in the way that we're resonating here, we want others in our lives to have that same sort of resonance, because when we do, our lives are more fulfilling, they're more peaceful, they're less stressful, and there's no need to continue to perpetuate harmful relationships if you don't choose.
So tell me, what tips could you give us if we were, let's say we're branching out and we've gone through a relationship loss and we're moving forward, and we're saying to ourselves, okay, we got to make some money. We got to move forward in a business. How do we start branching ourselves out into looking at other areas in which to do business in? How do we start developing new relationships? And I know that's extremely broad, so I mean, that's a very, very broad question. But how does one, take from a place where they're really hurt and they're struggling, and then thinking, okay, I've got to start making some money? So, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me, and maybe then you can spin off of this, is that, you have to find out what maybe you're good at, or what you can, what can you turn into a business? What can you move forward into making some money for yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And I can speak more to the individual entrepreneur, which is my specialty. And of course, it's really about, what is your expertise? Unless you're an inventor or you have a physical product, most times we're talking about a service business, right? So, really getting in touch with your expertise, and it's a combination of what you love to do, what most benefits others, what provides meaning for you in your life, and obviously, where there's an opportunity that people are actually going to need, want, and pay for your services. So there's a bit of an evaluation, that might need to take place in order to do that. And that's part of the work that I do as well. And, to relate it back to the boundary work, another aspect is knowing who those ideal clients are at a very deep level. People talk about demographics like location, industry, male or female, income levels. That's all great. But at the end of the day, also, there's characteristics of who they are as a person that is really important, because when you know where the types of people that are going to most resonate with you are, and you know who you really want to be with, you can start to focus your communication efforts towards those people. And it makes it gives you a lot more clarity, because you don't feel so overwhelmed, like, I don't know what I'm going to do and who I'm going to work with. It narrows that focus down, and it creates the structure and the boundaries around it, and then we can work from there.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent response, because I was thinking as you were talking and just thinking about my own life, I remember, thinking, well, I helped my ex-husband be very successful. I was right there with him, helping, typing up things, doing things, being supportive, marketing, doing whatever needed to be done. So then I started thinking to myself, as I'm moving forward, thinking I need to, develop something because I need to keep a roof over my head. I started thinking, well, if I could do all that for him, why couldn't I do it for myself? And so that shift of my self-worth went up tremendously, because before I thought it was really down in the pits and, what am I going to do? But then when that shift started happening, and the reason I share that is because I think we all have that place that we go to, that little voice that tells us maybe something that we, something negative that we can't maybe transpire, we can't move forward in our lives. Absolutely. But if we can create that shift, it makes a world of difference, doesn't it?
It does. It is related to self-worth. I've realized there's a direct connection between really having clarity around, again, it comes down to what you do, how you do it, who you serve, who you don't, and how much are you charging that is reflecting of your worth, which a lot of people, when they're getting started as well, they undercut themselves. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. They think, I'm just getting started, I need the experience or whatnot. But the reality is, if you are actually doing something that you already recognize has value for another, you can certainly make your prices reflective of that, And I do help people to give them permission to raise the prices beyond what they think they're worth. And when you do that, there's an empowered space. There's a level of confidence and clarity that comes with it. That's just, it's hard to describe, but it's just like, you know who you are a little bit more, and you don't have to worry about that which you're not. And there's a bit, or catering to the people who would never be your clients anyway. So what's the point in worrying about that? So, there's a lot of benefits to this work beyond the interpersonal. It's very personal as well for yourself.
Yeah, as you're saying this, it makes me smile, and it's because I remember a conversation with one of my closest friends, and she is also a counselor and helps people and does beautiful work, and totally different than what I do. But she struggled with that, with understanding she needed to raise her rates, and she was worth the higher rate. And so she struggled with that for a long time. And but she needed someone, and she started going to another coach herself, and she needed someone in her camp to kind of tell her, to nudge her along, to make her see, even though I might have said it, which I'm her girlfriend, and of course I'm going to tell her wonderful things anyhow, unless she doesn't look good that night, and I'll tell her to change her dress. But other than that, she knows that I would never tell her anything that would be negative to her self-esteem, that kind of thing. So she felt that she needed to go to a coach, someone that would be in her camp, that would kind of tell her the way it is, but tell her in a way that would boost her up to be able to go. She needed a professional in business because, of course, we're, I guess, in the emotional field, right? I'm in where struggling from relationship loss, moving through to, living your better life. It's really about your emotions and struggling through those struggles. But she needed a business individual that said, hey, you got this service, you're changing lives, you can prove it. But so she needed a professional that would stand up to her and really point out her self-worth. And so when I was talking to you the very first time, I thought, that's exactly. And so I added in on our stuff on the radio station that you were a business inspiring consultant, inspirational consultant, because I think that's truly what a very good business consultant is, or a business mentor or a coach is. They have to be inspiring, don't you think?
Not only do I think that, I include that in my own marketing messaging, because I think at the end of the day, there are these labels: coach, mentor, advisor, consultant. They all have different meanings. But when it comes down where the rubber meets the road, for me, when I'm working with someone and I know their boundaries, I'm speaking to them only from their core value, right? So when they stray from who they are or who they say they are, I know it. And when they are in alignment with who they are, I know it. And so I'm able to only work to provide inspiration, motivation, support, and encouragement, to say, well, if you fell off and didn't do something that was part of your boundary, or you overstepped your own boundary, let's just course correct and do it again the next time. And if you did, what a wonderful victory. And I celebrate with them. And it's more my nature to be positive in general. I can tell it like it is, but it's always with love. And I find my clients, and it's about who's best fit for you, right? So for some people, they may need more of a boot camp or more of a little bit of a firmer coach, and that's great. But for me, I find that when we have the protocols in place, I can simply refer to, did we follow the protocol? Did we not? Did we step off track? Did we not? And in either way, I'm going to provide encouragement and support and inspiration.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think you're spot on. And I also feel that, it's like, if you need to have a heart operation, you go to a heart surgeon or a heart doctor. If you need to have, your arm reset, you go to, a professional to have that done. You don't go to a dentist to get your arm, fixed. So, so it's very, very important that we seek out professionals that can guide us in our life as we travel through life. And so, and things will change, and things will inspire, and you will move. But I think that if we're looking at business, we really do need to look towards a business person to be able to help us with that element of business, because it's not only just the internal, that we have to strive for. We have to keep ourselves up when even times are tough. I mean, I get all that, all that we have to do, but we also need the business aspect of it, because we do need someone to keep us authentic and keep us real onto the path that we want to achieve. So, having your expertise as being a business consultant, you can kind of guide them not only, personally through the journey of growing and developing as an individual in business, but you can also guide them in their path of what profession it is that they want to go down. So I think that's very important, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, and most people I work with, they tend to have an idea. It's not such a mystery that they're coming from scratch. It's generally, am I daring? Is now the time? And am I bold enough to step into that and to claim my expertise and to understand that there is a need for me? And perhaps it even goes beyond that. Perhaps it's got to do with your ultimate purpose for being here, and feeling that there's something in this area. Maybe you don't have the exact ins and outs of how you're going to operate. And that again, it comes back to boundaries as well. And that's part of what I provide guidance with. But you have a sense of the who and the what, and it in some cases it's been nagging at you your whole life, So I tend to gravitate toward people who are a little more clarity about what it is. They just perhaps don't know exactly the way it's going to look. And I will also say my approach is about finding the simplest solution. I don't believe overcomplicating things, because it leads itself to stress, and I'm really all about ease. So simplicity also creates ease.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. So all of you that are on Instagram, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to us here. We are broadcasting live right here in the studio, and we have a wonderful guest here on, and we're talking about business. We're talking about refining our values and setting our boundaries in business. But Josh, what you're saying is so spot on, and I like the idea that our lives are a journey, right? And so when we decide we're going to go into business, that's also an essence of who we are. And so what you were saying is so true, that sometimes within the depth of ourselves, even our soul, we don't maybe necessarily know it or understand it. But we do have a path that's already there, that's just ready to maybe, move forward on. And it's great to have someone that can, kind of be still a little bit and really bring out the authentic individual to help them progress in the business of their choice. So I think that's awesome.
It's my passion. It's my reason for being here. And I continue to deepen how I do what I do, and to make it more practical and meaningful and simplistic. But I know that there's nothing else I'd rather be doing than helping people through all kinds of different transitions, for business, but also personal transitions as well. The same rules apply. It still comes down to knowing your worth, knowing your values, and making sure that you have relationships and partnerships that are as closely aligned with that as possible. I just think life is better when that's the case.
Yeah, and you're so true, because having the partners in your life that are aligned to you makes a world of difference, because if not, I mean, it's just a battleground.
Well, and if you are talking about an entrepreneur, it's a reason to lose focus, to get distracted. Mm-hmm. When you have sort of these extraneous relationships that aren't going anywhere or aren't really in alignment with where you want to go, it can be a distraction, and sometimes it's a comfort zone distraction. But for those who are actually looking to sort of trim the fat, so to speak, and to cut away what no longer works and really narrow the focus, there's a whole world of benefit to doing that.
Yeah, I totally get that. I know that going through my life, when you don't have somebody that's in your life that's not supportive of what you do, can really harm you. It can really bring you down. And so it's very important that you are aligned, with individuals that can bring you up, lift you up. I mean, because going in business, having your own business is not always fun and games. I mean, I don't know about you, but I burn the midnight oil many, many times. And I see the sun come up after I burned the midnight oil. So I totally understand that. But you know what? I love what I do, and so I don't realize it so much that that I'm working so much. You know what I mean? Because I love it.
Well, yeah, of course, and of course, there's always boundaries to set for work time, play time, and sleep time, and all that. But I mean, when you're following your passion, yeah, you have more energy. So
yeah,
and when you're only surrounded by those that support you, in what support means to you, because that's another thing too. I had a conversation with a woman just today who told me her biggest thing that she values is that people support her. So part of the work that we did, the exploratory initial work that we did, was to look at what are the actual ways that people demonstrate support. What does that look like to you? Because when you recognize the actual action of support, you can say, aha, this person is supportive. Or when you know what isn't support, you can say, aha, that's not supportive. And it just, again, it comes down to clarity. It's like, I feel this way, but I don't know what it is. I just don't feel supported. That's one way. That's probably how we operate. And then we continue to attract people that don't support us. But when you really get clear on what support looks like for you, now you're starting to realize that you can bring people in that follow those behaviors, characteristics, actions, and they demonstrate to you that they support you. And they get
that's very, very well said, because that is true. I have had individuals in my life that have said that to me. I've done various different things, whatever, and I thought I was being very supportive, right? And I remember them saying to me, well, you're not very supportive. And I'm thinking, like, what are you talking about? I mean, I'm doing all this, and this, and this, but it wasn't what they needed.
And exactly. And that's what I said at the beginning, which was, you weren't coming with some malicious intent. In fact, you were coming with love, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's not a match for one's needs, no matter how pretty it looks on the surface, I'm not talking about relationships that are all garbage. I'm talking about great, loving relationships, but there's just an unworkability. So there's either an opportunity to have a conversation and for you to agree to perhaps take a different action to give them a little bit more ease, or there's an agreement where, you're not, and that's okay, and the relationship can dissolve, and that's okay. But without knowing that, it can just become this perpetual, them feeling like victimized, so to speak, and you feeling like, but I'm just trying to give, I'm just trying to be helpful, and it just doesn't work, and it's just it's a loss of energy, and it's a distraction, and that's it.
Spot on with that one.
That's a great example. That's a real example and a common example.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it reminds me of, being in a relationship. We're talking about dating, and we're talking about things, the 5 languages of love. We each have our own different language, and it's the same thing. I think when we're looking at that, we have different ways of thinking that you're helping us or whatever you're doing. So I think you're absolutely right. So is there any tips that you would like to share with us tonight? Anything that we haven't covered that we want to make sure we cover for everyone?
I not to plug myself, but the tip that I have is that, it's really helpful to have an exploration of your stress points, your ease points. This tells, and what I mean by this is the pinpointing the exact areas that frequently trigger stress. And what does the ideal opposite of that really look like? And to get that distinction, right? And that's part of the first initial work that I do with someone complimentary, is to help them just shed some light on that. And so, it kind of plays into the fact that I've built my own protocol for working with people to provide that first tip, in a sense. So know clearly and specifically and how these stress points play out, and look at them objectively. And I do that in partnership with people if anyone's interested.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it is a different way of looking at things, because sometimes we just, go head into something, and we really need to think about, how is this going to affect us? And, our mental being is very, very important, because if we continue to get stressed out, then we're just not effective, right?
Exactly. And when you're able to recognize it for what it was, have a new context for what's coming up, understand a new action that you've agreed to take in conversation and dialogue and determined it was the best action to take, and then take it, not to get esoteric, but the world shifts a bit, and you start to find, I mean, for me, I manage over 60 clients at any given time in general, almost single-handedly. I run a server. I manage people's businesses and emails, and yet I'm able to shut down at 5 o'clock if I want to, and only choose to do things in the evening that I choose to do because I have a family, I have a wife, I have a daughter. So, I have to be a living example of how to balance all that, so that in any given moment, all is handled. At least the feeling of my life is that all is handled. I'm not saying I have a perfect life and there's no stress and all that. It's just that when you recognize it for when it comes up for what it is, and you take a new action, it starts to not come up as much. And that's what I mean by there's a shift in your reality.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I know that for myself, the business that I started, I just needed something to put myself into. You know what I mean? I needed to be able to focus and just put myself into it. And I realized that sometimes I could stop, but I'm just loving it. I'm loving it so much. There's certain elements I don't really like so much. So I tend to put those off. But the one thing that I do love to do, I just do them a little longer sometimes because it actually does give me joy. And so I think that as long as you're happy doing what you do, that's very important. And if you're not, then I think we do need to stop for a minute and evaluate it. Maybe talk to someone like you to be able to understand, okay, I need to make a living. There's elements of this position that I like. There's things I don't like. How can I tweak that so that I can have that balance, that I can.
It applies not just to entrepreneurship, but if you're in a job and you feel pressure and you feel frustrated and you feel disrespected, there are choices to make. And again, it comes down to, it might be knowing where you stand in your negotiables and what you want to communicate and how, or it might be walking away and pursuing, and I understand that space of not making that choice. I was in that place myself, knowing that I wanted to do something on my own and be my own, be in control of my life and be self-sufficient, and also having expectations to sell, or, manipulate people, or, do something that goes against my values for the sake of perhaps a paycheck or the security of something. So I get that space, but without some form of clarity, and it's hard to make that choice confidently.
Yeah, totally get it. Well, let's share with everyone our your website so that they can get in contact with you if they so like. We'll bring it across the screen here to make sure that they have it. So, I really hope that you guys will reach out. If you're looking at doing a business, if you're looking at having a business and you want to make it a little bit better, if you just want to feel better about your business, then I think definitely we want to be able to do that. Is there any last words you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's been such a pleasure knowing you. Although we first met, it feels like we've known each other, and we're going to continue. And that's it. That's what I want to leave the audience with is, you can have a random connection with someone, and when you know who you are and what you want to say and what you want to communicate, opportunities present themselves. So here's a chance for me to reach a fabulous audience, perhaps have some people that may become people that I get to partner with. And so that's an example of what my whole message is here. You don't have to work so hard. You just have to know who you are and what you want to say.
Wow, that's beautifully said. It is so true, and I think that we should always grab at any opportunity that comes our way if we think it's going to be worthwhile for us, and not let our fear, second guess. We don't second guess things. We just kind of do them, and sometimes stepping out of the box, right, it might be a huge step, but it's amazing how that shift will happen. Will create something good for you. So yeah. I totally agree with it. I am much more, before I never really rocked the boat, just kind of stayed level. And now I just kind of do a lot of different things. And I figure if it doesn't work out, well, didn't work out, you know. But it might be the best thing in the world that ever happened. So I've been, what the heck? Go for it, right?
Absolutely. When one door closes, others open. And sometimes, as my friend says and partner says, when you close the door yourself, another will open as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I know I often say that sometimes the door is wide open and I try to climb through the window instead. Make it a little bit harder for myself.
That's another way, yeah.
But either way, I'm going to get out, right? I'm going to get going. But that's what's important. Well, you are a delight. I think your business is tremendous. I think you've taken a bit that people are missing in business, you know. You're taking the personal aspect of it, the core values of individuals, and really helping them to rise above what they ever thought they could accomplish simply because they listen to that little voice sometimes, you know, the little negative voice that we have. And sometimes so you help them rise above that, you know, squash that voice out and let them be who they really should be, who they're going to become. So I hope that this show, people are listening. If you do want to go into business, or if you just, you know, need to just learn a little bit more about your authentic self, I hope that you will contact Josh, most certainly. So let's put up your website one more time so everyone has it, because I think it's very, very vital that they get this. And so just reach out and contact him. Of course, now we have all his information right on our website right there on our station, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You can go to goingsolomedia.com, and he is one of our elite guests, and he's there. All his links are there. Everything's there that you can reach out to him anytime. And I'm sure, Josh, you'd love to hear from him, right?
Absolutely. Anytime.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to have to close the show. I want to thank you, Josh, very much for being with us. Josh Lamothe, is very nice to have you. And this time goes very quickly. You're going to find the rebroadcast of this show, both on Going Solo with CC and on our business showcase, so that you can find it right there. Again, if you are looking to do something in your life, if you feel like, you know, I need to step out, I need to make some money, I need to maybe start a business, I think Josh is really the guy to be able to go to talk to about that. Because, you know, it's not just about what you want to do. It's really about where you want your future to be. You know, what path do you want to go on? And so often we want to think about, you know, dollars and cents, but it's not always about dollars and cents. But dollars and cents will come if you're on the right path. And that's really what it's all about. So, well, this is CC Schatz. I am the doyenne of relationship building. If you haven't heard from me before, you better get in contact with me, don't you think? I'm right here on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And this is the Going Solo with CC show. And we are going to respect and honor the business showcase. Talk to you later. Bye for now. See you next week.